Uncle, yes.
What are we doing here?
So this is the part 2 of the MakeBell experience.
What is a MakeBell?
MakeBell, well, we're going to get into the name.
The Bronx High School. Yes.
Well, that's right.
The Bronx
so
High School
Ron, we're going to talk to, this is going to be in English. We're going to talk to Ron, Bronx Science alumnus. Now, we went to different periods. But
Did you know him in school?
No. So to get into that more, I'm gonna pop this as a surprise topic, which is midlife crisis. Like for me, I'm using AI. AI was sort of like a way for me to deal with my midlife crisis. So maybe if Ron wants to share, that's a possible topic to delve into. And it doesn't have to be ARA. Maybe it's dog related. We don't really know. We're going to find out more. So
this is the Hong Kong AI podcast.
Hong Kong AI podcast.
But we're going to talk about just dogs.
Dogs, culture, midlife crisis, just
moonshine,
New York, handball, Bronx Science, and moonshine.
Yes.
Okay.
Moonshine.
So all of these things, and thank you again, Aki Labs, for hosting us.
Yes. Thank you, Aki Labs. Ron.
Yes, totally.
Why the fuck are you here?
I'm here because of you.
Oh, I'm so happy. So Bronx High School.
Bronx Science. We're full of BS.
Yeah.
The BS connections. Okay.
That's right.
So were you like? Did you remember Little Og in school?
No, we went at different times. I mean, when he went to BS,
Yeah. You were in uni.
the food was edible. I mean, he actually
Don't bang the table.
Sorry.
Don't.
The food was edible. He could actually eat the food. You know, at Bronx Science, where we had veal cutlets, we used to play frisbee with them. They were so hard we could just throw them.
I went to boarding school in England, so it's not Harry Potter.
Now we would think it's good, but you're saying it's bad.
English cooking, you really think it's good? You think it's like
Potato.
Jamie Oliver's cooking your meal? No.
You mean it's the stuff my dogs wouldn't eat?
Oh, your dog would look at it and go, "This is even worse than grass."
So when we talk about Bronx Science, the main one of the things we always talk about is the commute. What was the commute?
Oh my God, the commute. God, it was like an hour and a half plus. I have to go from Queens, took the bus to the train station, took the train through Harlem, New York, which at the time was a bad neighborhood.
The 4 train, right? Or 6?
Or the 6, yeah. Or actually the E and then the A train. And then they went through the South
I have a
Bronx.
question.
Yes.
Was the train always so insane in New York? Like,
Oh yeah, you went through the ghetto.
you like in New York, the subway, right? First of all, you never know which direction that train is going, because like some trains only stop at a certain station and doesn't stop in the other, and then you don't really know where it is going.
No,
and then every now and then the announcements are.
Well, you can't hear. But I was going to say, like, you're not sure what you're going to smell when you enter the train.
Wow,
Yeah.
you're not sure what you're going to smell anywhere.
Well,
in
the
New
one
York.
the one time it did happen was when I was in the train and under the East River in the tunnel, and it stopped, and then it went backwards, and we were like, okay, this is new.
But to be an equal opportunist, we're not just bad-mouthing New York. I'll give you a Paris story. So Paris,
Paris.
Paris.
Yes.
Fancy.
As I was,
But some dirty parts, yeah.
no, I'm talking so one morning we were sketching in Paris. I was a good old art student, La Seine, sketching.
C'est bien.
And the teacher going da 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 went on and on about something. I still remember Ian Patterson's from Cornell. Anyway, as we were sketching, someone go, "What is that thing floating there?" And it was a floater. And someone has to call the police.
Not a
Paris.
floater, not a poop, but a human being.
Oh,
Floating former human being.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
It's a floater,
yes.
How can you spot a giant skunk in the middle of a river?
And you started sketching it? Is that what you did?
But I didn't sketch it that much.
And she was saying, I wish I had a camera and AI.
No, but thinking about equal opportunists, like when I first came back to Hong Kong, one of my uncles was also in newspaper for a long time. He told me another story. Is that he's like, Hong Kong is a much like it's nowadays things are so by the book and serious. When I was a young man, I was having dim sum, and I overheard a conversation. It was like someone go, "Oh, sir," he shows up, and then he's like, "We got a floater." And then the junior police officer was telling his superior, and superior's like, "Go get a bamboo and shove it outside." That would be a different jurisdiction. And he said, "You see, Tanya, Hong Kong nowadays, this kind of things would never happen, So you have to know that you are living in a very good time now." I'm an equal opportunist.
Go for it.
We love it.
All right. Anyway, so Bronx Science High School, which you have to take like 15 trains before you can actually get to school.
Actually, it wasn't the trains. It was the neighborhood you go through and the kinds of people that come in. That was unpredictable. Very unpredictable.
Is that how it prepared you to become a lawyer, because you already seen all these people?
Oh no! I actually was. I actually went to engineering school after that. I was like, none of this. I am not representing these kinds of people.
So how come you are in Hong Kong now?
Oh, very easy. 1985, 1986, I was working for a company called Wang Laboratories, and they had a problem financially, and they said to me, well, you can get laid off or you can go to Hong Kong on an expatriate package. I said, let me think about this.
Wow.
Yeah, about 10 seconds later, I said yes. Yeah, it took I was a little slow at the time. It took.
Yes, okay.
So what did you do for them? What was the role?
Well, first off, I was teaching them a little bit about some marketing techniques by large firms like IBM. I was also supporting their imaging system. And I also had dabbling in their then expert systems. And then also on top of that, every now and then the technical people would call me in and ask me, like, we need to install this IBM system. Can you help us? And, they thought me being an ex-IBM systems engineer, I could help them. I think my most memorable experience is when we were trying to set up this quote-unquote easy-to-use email system. It took us half an hour to figure out how to send an email.
That's 1980s, I mean.
1980.
Oh, wow. So this is like internal emails then?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, yeah. It was,
Because I think email, I started to use an email in 1997. Earthlink. That's already early.
Well, that was the 1980s. Wang had their own email system.
Wow.
And then we just used the IBM. Well, really, it was more for a competitive intelligence.
Because I still remember in 1997, there was two type of emails.
Yes.
For public. There is the Earthlink is actually a service provider. But while many people are still in CompuServe and
AOL.
AOL. I don't think anyone knows the difference now. Yeah.
Well, I remember the dial-up modem.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Dwing, dwing. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Does the law, was that tied to the midlife crisis? Because it sounds like you were in engineering and software, and then you transitioned?
I had a few things that happened in my life, which were just, and it started in engineering, went into software. I went to work at FedEx. This was and this was with the team that built the system that they now use for Apple, Foxconn specifically, to build the 5 phones. So it was so I actually got to see the whole thing built from start to scratch. I saw them how they architected it. Saw how they got all the teams together in terms of support.
You mean in China, that really massive town?
No, this was in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
No, the whole thing started.
So your background is in electronic engineering? Or
no, mechanical engineering.
Okay.
He's electronical engineering.
Oh, okay.
But no, and computer science, but no. This was in Singapore, and it was at the time it was very radical technology. It was a new technology at the time called client server,
Oh wow, what is that?
He's laughing. Okay,
Yeah, Og is like dying over that.
Wait. I will tell you how they got.
This is like a stand-up comedy,
I will
right?
tell you how they got this. They actually had to fight internally with the mainframe people in Memphis. And
what? Oh my God!
Mainframe. So there was actually a political fight, and basically the Singapore guys who were very un-Singaporean, they had these mainframe people say, "Oh, you're using the internet; it's not secure." Right. Okay, and it's our system is proven, and and we've got excellent, backup in case of any emergency. And so the Singaporeans went to these guys and said, your mainframe is located in Memphis Airport, near Memphis Airport, right? He says, yes. What happens when a 747 goes off the runway and crashes into your building? What happens to the network? And the the mainframe guys were completely shit-faced. And yes, that's how they ended up with the Singaporeans taking over the system. So I got to watch that happen.
Interesting. Yeah. Yes. I always knew about the Memphis hub. It's like a logistics hub. I actually worked with a software company called Vitria.
You mean FedEx, right? FedEx hub.
Federal Express, yeah.
So there's a lot of technology that goes into that logistics hub in Memphis. But I had no idea of the Singapore associate. But it would make sense that they would need a corresponding hub in Asia.
Yeah.
Right?
So what happened was that initial hub was actually what they initially built in Singapore was a application for Timberland. And so what they had was the Timberland warehouse in Singapore. It supported the
shoes.
Yeah, and the clothing. So what they did was they actually would take these clothes and in the Singapore and they would put a label on it and fly it to whatever market needed it. So they put on like a Japanese label and fly it to Tokyo, put on a Chinese label to fly it to Taipei or wherever. And so they evolved this system later to become the supply chain system for FedEx, for Sony, and this was the basis of their operation. So to answer your question after that, it was really interesting. I was in Singapore at the time, and I loved it so much. They actually offered me a director position, and I said, "Nothing doing. I'm not going to Singapore."
This is FedEx, or
this is FedEx.
Yeah.
This is FedEx. Yeah.
So you stayed with Wang then?
No. Wang was a long time ago, and then I went to HP, Hewlett Packard, and then I had a startup which was doing. It started out doing product localization, which was translating, products in English to, let's say, Thai. And then because product localization only happens 1 or 2 times, you translate something to Thai, it's like they don't need you.
Tanya's very familiar. She did that for
I'm at Apple. That was my main role. I do all the motion graphics, video, and photography's localization.
Right, and then once you do it, there's very little follow-on work.
Not with Apple.
No, in our case it was.
But yours is product localization. So you're doing a product, whereas when I did for marketing, so there's always needs for that sort of stuff.
So we ended up going into marketing because these guys didn't know how to write their own brochures and their user manuals. So that's what we ended up.
So localizations, like maybe some people don't understand what localization is that you don't do straight translation, but you're doing it for a specific market.
Correct.
So for instance, sometimes even though it's Chinese, but Chinese for Singapore and Chinese for Hong Kong is slightly different.
Correct. And then the
Yeah.
other thing was, since this was during the era of DOS, which
Yes.
and so we
Oh,
had
God.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
DOS. What is DOS?
DOS, yeah.
This
Yeah.
operating system.
I know, yeah. That's good.
So you have to actually think about how to actually translate English commands to a local language. So, for example, I think Lotus 123, the spreadsheet, they used to have this /F command, and we go like, how do we do /F in Thai? Oh gosh, it's like
Ricky actually learned Thai. So
yeah. And the other problem with Thai is that there was no delimiters, right? Okay, so then you got to go. Okay, how do I deal with this? Now, the other problem at the time, and this is a true story, if you had to deal with communications, this network was so backwards, undeveloped, that they couldn't handle.
Unsophisticated.
They couldn't. They didn't know about Asian languages. So, this happened in HP a lot. They would actually try to send, for example, Chinese characters or Thai characters through the network, and the network would shut down because the network didn't know that these were words.
Yeah.
Yes, and they interpreted them as, oh, this is a network shutdown command.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. It happened so many times.
You just like in the span of like 10 minutes, you mentioned a couple of big names like IBM.
Yep.
And then you went to like Wang's that actually using email in the 1980s, right?
Yes.
And then you went to HP.
Yeah, and then my own startup, and then went to FedEx.
Yeah.
And then you're asking me when did my midlife crisis occur? Well, actually,
All asked. I didn't ask.
I
But
thought
okay.
it was related to law.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
Because when I met you, I thought you were into law, not technology. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because that was what you were working on when I met you.
oh yeah.
Well, like my goodness, we need just like 20 minutes just to work out the timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, to answer your question, I actually, after FedEx, I actually just decided to go and do something different. I guess you might say quasi midlife, but then it was in computer forensics. Okay, and so I became.
What does that mean?
It means, those people who go in and they check your computers and say, "Ooh, he's got this data," and then they grab the data and then they take it to the police and say, "Look at what this person." Yeah. So basically, what you do is you go and grab people's computers or computer devices, and you take the data off for later, for example, court.
So you were a computer forensic scientist.
Yeah, well, computer forensics guy. Yeah.
Yeah. For how long?
A couple of years. It didn't last very long. But the thing that got me into law was one, after Bronx Science, I had always some idea I wanted to get into law. Two, one of my instructors, David Leung, at the computer forensics class, actually thought I'd be good in law, and he later became the head of Department of Prosecutions in the Department of Justice. And three, I was doing some family work at the time, and I was just getting pissed off with stupid lawyers. And I said to myself and my lawyer at the time says, I am going to get a law degree so I can tell these guys to just fuck off and die.
So you get into law to tell some people to fuck off
and die.
Okay, and die. Okay, yes, all right. Yeah, that's
a podcast.
I think that's a really correct reason to go into a new profession.
Yeah, he and I had to deal with stupid lawyers, and we just. I used to buy him lots and lots of bottles of very good cognac.
Okay, so where does the moonshine comes into place?
Oh, that was at university. These guys. I roomed with some chemical engineers.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and they just said, "Oh, let's try some. What do they call it? Let's try this chemist special."
Okay.
Hawaiian punch, and grain alcohol.
So is it like a room with a bunch of test tubes and Bunsen burners, and then one side is like nearly ripe cantaloupe or something, and the other side is
No. Well, in this particular case, it was actually a party, and I grabbed something that I thought was a beer, and
was it like paint strippers, like 95% proof?
Oh no, it was no. Well, grain alcohol is pretty close to 100% proof, but then you put enough.
Lightweight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you drink.
This was at RPI.
RPI.
Troy, New York.
New York.
Tell me about that town.
New York.
Where's Troy, New York?
Troy, New York is outside Albany. It's a couple of miles drive. It is actually where they built. It is actually the home of IBM Deep Blue, actually.
Oh.
And how do I say?
So from center of Manhattan,
3-hour drive to Albany, and then another 20 minutes to Troy.
I can get to Boston faster than this.
Yes. And then Troy, how I got to Troy, well, I applied to RPI. My parents didn't want me to go. And then one of my dad's friends said, my son goes to RPI. I went to Troy. There is absolutely nothing to do there. He will be so bored. He will be studying all the time.
Very Chinese parents.
It's the same like the U of C, right?
Yeah.
I went to visit. And U of C, and I'm like, it's so scary. The whole place, the most happening place in that place is the library.
Oh God!
Everyone are like rushing in there. Like in the canteen, no one was speaking. I was like the odd person. I was talking to person. Everyone is having dinner with some book. Yeah, it's that kind of school, right?
Yeah, it was, but
that got you into IBM.
Well, actually, I enjoyed RPI really a lot. Well, actually, I went to U of Michigan for a master's degree, and then then I went to then I got to IBM.
All the heavy hitters.
It's better manually. Is what we call. Yeah, but no, IBM was actually interesting for a couple of reasons. One, because I realized I didn't want to be in IBM. Two, because I didn't want to stay in Michigan. And three, my colleague at work was a guy named Craig Newmark, who went to found Craigslist.
Oh.
That Craig.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
How was Craig?
He was completely different from what later became. He later became sort of this grungy guy. He used to dress up very, very sharp.
Really?
Seriously.
I would have thought that
No.
Craig, the guy who invented Craigslist, must be wearing like Birkenstock.
That was later. When he was at IBM, he used to dress up, very stylish, which made him stand out because everybody in IBM was wearing a blue suit, white shirt, and a red tie. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, seriously, if you had a blue shirt, they thought you might as well have gone in, naked. People would just look at you and go, it's like. Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, he didn't fit in at all, but he and I ended up getting to know each other because we both didn't fit in. I introduced him to sushi, by the way. So that was my fame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your claim of fame is
my claim was that was my claim of it.
And then how is this tied to MakeBell eventually?
Yeah.
Does the name have anything to do with those?
Absolutely not. That is all Kenneth's idea.
Oh.
MakeBell is a quasi acronym. Okay. So I guess I could say that since IBM was into acronyms, they had acronyms for everything. Mm-hmm. They had SNA, ASN. What else? SNA. I don't know. They just.
I worked in a lab in Hong Kong that was into acronyms as well.
Yeah.
Miracle.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was Kenneth's idea.
Okay.
So it's a it's a hybrid acronym actually. It's make better, easier, less liable.
Oh, okay.
So it's all his idea.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it had to do with your experiences with lawyers, and then you want.
It would be fuck off and die.
Yeah. FOAD limited.
Most liable, yeah.
Yeah. No. That would have made us more liable. Yeah. Well, I guess we could call it ML, but instead of machine learning, more liability.
Yeah. So how does MakeBell tie into AI? Like, it was just because, like...
Oh, well, okay. I know I had been been interested in AI, but that was actually expert systems. I started with, I actually got interested in it in IBM, but that was because not really AI per se, it was because I was actually interested in the robotics aspect, because I was my client was General Motors at the time, and so they were...
Wow, another big name.
Yeah, and I was supporting the team that Craig was with, and they were developing a protocol for manufacturing. So I got interested in the robotic aspects of it, and there was
car building, of course.
Yeah, and then and then they started getting into some kinds of expert type systems, dabbling here and there. And then at Wang, they also had expert systems, or they were dabbling in it. So that was the AI. But but that's very different from what you have now, because what you have now is generative AI, which works in a completely different way, though. You do also
how does it work in a computer different way, like for general audience sake?
Okay, for a general audience sake, expert systems are a subset of what are called symbolic AI. Basically, what it means is they were rule-based systems, so that they would tell you, okay, let's say you tell the system for
you draw the parameters, right? Well, you can only do this and do this.
Let me give you an example. Cathay Pacific had an expert system years ago. So what it had was like, okay, you want to schedule flight attendants, all right? You have to follow this through. You cannot schedule them at these times. If they have been on a flight, you have to wait a certain number of days before they can fly again. So basically,
a lot of rigid parameters.
Very rigid parameters. So people got really found these very useful in certain cases.
Would there be like that? Like, for instance, the ATMs. Like right now, a lot of ATM systems are like they still have a very archaic language, and they're very safe, and they've been used by banks all over the world. Are those expert systems?
No, I think you could just use that plain programming.
Just plain programming.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they don't have any.
The default systems are just plain programming.
It's more like layering of rules. Conditionals. Branching logic. Things like that.
Yeah.
So like when you draw a flow chart, there's a lot of like the diamond shape.
Well, yeah.
That's right.
We're talking about something like an N8N. I think you could probably model an expert system using an N8N flow. Something like that.
Yeah. So that's so that now today you actually have generative AI systems. There are two big kinds. There's one that's called LLM, which everybody talks about.
The large language model.
And so the LLMs work differently in that you actually have a lot of data. You've had trained this model on this data, and it works by trying to predict essentially what are called the tokens. Tokens in a it looks at a bunch of tokens and tries to predict what's the next token. So like when you put in Hong. It would come up, what's the next word after Hong? Oh, Kong, Hong Kong, Now, the other kind of model is the diffusion model. The diffusion model is used mainly on images and motion videos. And the diffusion model works by basically, it takes a picture, it breaks it up into what is called noise. So it just, little
pixels, like little cluster of pixels.
Right. And then it tries to figure out how to put it back together again. Okay? And so...
This is why we got the 6 fingers.
Hey.
Some animals have it. I mean, for me, the difference is expert systems are what we call deterministic. Right? And then generative AI is sort of probabilistic.
Correct.
Right?
And now you have neurosymbolic systems, which kind of marry the two. It's kind of like really with the agentic system, you have set of rules, and then you tell the agent go do this, but follow these rules. So it's kind of
So now you say that the latest one is a little bit of both.
a little bit of both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think-
Rails. It's sort of the blending of Rails, but within those Rails, the agent is sort of thinking and reasoning what it can do among this thing.
So you basically like it, from my like if I want to summarize this, like it's like if it is probabilistic one, the large language model, that's a little bit like rolling a dice, right?
Yeah, kind of. You could say
loaded
that.
dice because it's probabilistic on a curve. And
Right,
things like
but the thing is, okay, you have these things called weights in a model. So so what it does is, okay, it's like kind of like a loaded dice, you know. It's like
Well, loaded dice means like the one that you cheat, right? So if I want like six to come out more time, make that part a bit heavier.
Yeah.
So in craft, 7 and
Yeah.
11, they come up the most.
Yeah.
So that's what token prediction is. It's mostly like, what is the most probable next token?
Yeah, and in the case of a diffusion model, I guess the way to look at it, in that case, since it's not predicting the net token, it's like you think of, let's say, music. You've got the score for Beethoven, let's say Feu Élysée, okay? And then you've got the music score, and that would be like the data for the model. But then the way somebody plays it would be kind of like the weighting, okay, the interpretation. So let's say, I don't know, Vladimir Ashkenazi would play it differently from Lang Lang, for example. Okay, so that would be like that's kind of like weighting.
You mean the
The
fact that
interpretation.
the interpretation is weighting.
Yeah, the weighting in the diffusion model. Yeah, you could kind of think of it that way.
Yeah, I'm doing some research on the fly. Denoising into, like removing the noise into something meaningful is sort of the distinction with diffusion.
Yeah, and that's like the opposite of lawyering. You're taking something meaningful and making it noisy.
Is that what you do all the time?
No, he does that. He's the general counsel.
Okay. So, but you also teach AI law.
Yes, well, I
quantum.
pretend.
Yeah, so AI,
No, wait.
that's the book.
No, that's the book. The quantum, the quantum actually came about because I'm also teaching a class on regulation technology, and we actually started we actually threw in quantum computing and quantum resistant encryption into the class. And you asked me, how did I become so expert at it? It says, very simple. I read a few books on it. I learned something, and then I invited a real expert to do the guest lecture.
No, quantum is such a deep topic.
Yes.
Because it's got a lot of jargon and all sorts of standards.
No, but we're talking about quantum, like we're talking about quantum mechanics.
Yep.
And then based on quantum mechanics, there is this new type of computers that is quantum computers.
Yep.
And that runs, instead of the traditional bits, it runs on qubits.
Yep.
And the idea is that theoretically, with qubits, if we can actually make it work, and if there's enough electricity, if we have enough resources,
Yes.
it should be able to do calculations much faster.
Yes, it should be. It does, but it's very limited in what it can do. There are a lot of concepts that people have got to wrap their head around, and the part for since we're talking about education, to do mathematics for quantum computing is a whole new level, because Kenneth loves calculus. I hate calculus. I mean,
really?
yeah. But I was okay with linear algebra. That's not his cup of tea. But quantum, you don't have Okay, linear algebra, you have matrix, which is these two-dimensional tables. Quantum, you have lattice, which is like a matrix, but in multiple dimensions. I'm like going, I cannot wrap my head. I have enough trouble wrapping my head around, calculus, a three-dimensional matrix. Oh God, no.
So you don't want to play 4D chess?
Oh gosh, no. I couldn't handle. I do not have the mental capacity to handle 3D chess. 2D chess.
So you wrote a book on quantum computer?
Actually, I'm writing a book chapter on, AI, quantum, and IP, intellectual property, and
In one chapter.
in one chapter.
What's the name of the book?
It's actually well, they're finalizing the title,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it'll come out later.
That's between you and your Claude to talk about,
Your
right?
publisher.
My publisher. Well, no. Well, actually,
thought it's called-
I'm actually just writing, contributing the chapter. So somebody else is writing.
But so back to you teach AI law,
And well, AI in law, yeah.
AI in law.
But the class is an IP class, so the AI came about with the IP because
Okay.
I
I'm going to ask a question.
Yes, because I had an extra class to fill. I go like, what do I do? And like, okay. So I was like, okay, well, screw that. I'm just going to throw the AI in and see what I can do with these
So you're
students.
teaching law, and then you're like trying to figure out the curriculums.
Yep.
There's a gap,
Yep.
and you go, yeah, nice, comfortable
Hey,
gap.
look, that's how I taught. Look, I actually had a class I was co-teaching with somebody, and he said, "Oh, I got to go off," and I go like, "Oh shit, I got 3 hours. What do I do with that?" So I threw in a valuation, IP valuation, and that, and then
So you
so
become very popular, I bet.
yeah, well, yeah, not so popular, but
Really?
yeah, but some people just took my class because of that, because they wanted to learn IP valuation. They didn't take
What
20.
what does that mean? Like,
I have no idea.
Oh no, I mean like when you say IP evaluation, is it like, is this idea worth IPing? Is that what that means?
Okay, well, basically, it's trying to assess a value for the intellectual property.
okay.
Okay, so that's what it means.
I see, valuation,
Okay, yeah,
like
valuation. Yes. So
Still
that,
don't get it.
What do you mean?
Like what? you mean?
Okay. Like
Coke recipe, how much is it worth?
yeah.
Oh.
Or how much is this trademark worth? Or I got this patent. How much money can I raise for for my startup? Yeah, so something like that. Yeah, and then the AI class really just I just thought before these guys get too snarky with AI with me, I'm just going to teach the class, and then so it was a how do I say this, preemptive fucking me up moment. So because I figured, okay, some smart ass is going to come in and say, "Oh, I know AI. This teacher doesn't know anything." Yeah, I go say, "Yeah, try me."
So I come across Ronald in AI Tenkers, and Ronald would sit there and
Fall asleep.
pretending he's falling asleep or really falling asleep.
No, I didn't fall asleep.
And then he will make a comment, and then everyone will go, "Wow," and then it get repeated for the next 10 days.
God.
So I would say that in Chinese, we have in China, there's this term called 扫地僧, right? It means it's like in the Kung Fu movie in the Shaolin Temple. You see all this masters, and there's one there's one monk over there. Seems to be not involving with all this kung fu fighting, and only slowly, quietly sweeping the floor. But when things get dangerous, here he is coming out just with the broom, hit the guy, and the guy falls off to the floor, and then that's it. And to me, you're kind of that kind of guy. You're
Well, thank
pretending that. You're pretending that nothing is going on, and I remember recently you make you gave him a little bit of advice, because there was a long discussions of how nowadays in university or in schools, a lot of students are using AI to do their homeworks, and should AI be in the school? Should they be in learning? And how can you assess students their learning progress and their ability if everyone's using AI to do their work? And you make a comment, you make the suggestions, and it got repeated for at least 10 days.
Oh, okay. Let me explain that one to you. That actually, my teaching partner and I came up with that solution about 7 years ago. We actually anticipated something like this. The problem with assessing people in the AI age is that they can cheat. If, for example, they give you, say, write a paper on, dog training. Okay, they get the AI to write it. In the past, they would hire a ghostwriter at $50,000 or whatever. Now they get AI to do it. And of course, they still make mistakes. The best ghostwriting story I had was one student wrote this beautiful paper, and I'm going, she's not smart enough to have written this. But then I thought to myself, how do I give her a C, because this is an A paper? And I realized, oh, wait a minute, it's an A paper for a completely different subject. So it'd be like, I give you a paper on a beautiful paper on training my dog, and you say, this is a beautiful paper. The assignment was to write a paper on cat training. Okay, so I gave her a C because she wrote it on the wrong subject, and she's like, bastard. I'm going, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I asked you to write this. You didn't write it on the correct topic. It was a beautiful paper, but I'm sorry. It was like, and basically it was like, thank you, bitch. Go back to daddy and ask him for, whatever. The question the problem was one, we wanted to make the class more interesting. So to make the class more interesting, you had to actually make it like a lecture plus talking and answering questions. And the thing was, we also realized that, in the future, they were going to be using computers and all this stuff, and they were getting more aids. So you actually you can give them harder problems because you assume that they will use the harder problems to prepare the answers. But then they have to answer the question in real time without any aids, without a computer. So then as a result, you actually force them to learn from whatever the AI is spitting out to them. They are forced to learn that. Okay.
So you mean as like teachers who now probably in school, if they're facing the problem that their students are handing in work, beautiful work, but for sure that at least from their normal classroom behavior, they might not be able to come up with this type of work. It's easy, just put in the oral aspect.
Yeah, because then they have to, they're forced to actually learn this stuff.
Because in order to be able to explain something.
See, we had figured at the time, 7 years ago, we figured they were going to use Google, and that Google would improve such that it would give them more information. And then at some point, there would be a AI or something like an AI that would give them the answers right there and then, And so then what do? You cannot test them on, an answer that Google gave. So you make them learn whatever Google spit out to them, and then explain it.
Because it's it's actually a few different things, right? It's like to be able to actually input enough information for your AI to actually spill out of a paper. That's already, you have to have some sort of understanding. And to be able to memorize all those informations and to actually give a speech in this subject. That's like level 2, maybe.
That is level 2.
And maybe level 3 is to actually have them say, can you explain and teach the process of what is, then that's level 3.
Right. Yes.
Because you might have a full understanding of the subject, but you might not be able to explain in the steps and sequence.
Correct. But then the thing is, okay, what is it to be a human? You have to be able to communicate with other humans. So this is actually a very important skill, whether it's AI or not. And you have a lot of these students who are just completely incapable of communication. They just go to school, they sit through the lecture, or watch videos during the lecture, and then they go back and they just don't really have any learning or understanding of what they're supposed to learn, and then the only time they learn is just at the last, just before the final, and they just go and cram
Oh,
everything.
that's
in.
what I do.
Good for you.
But I mean, maybe level 4 would be give them an even harder question, like harder task, so that and see whether they're problem solving.
We did that. Okay, we started doing that in about year 5. The harder task was, we're going to give you a time limit. Basically, so we had like a group of 6. We say, we just give you a generous time limit, 5 minutes. And then they actually have to not only communicate, they have to cut everything down. So that's another level. Because our thinking was, because people have shorter attention spans, so you got to just communicate what you have to say in 5 minutes. They always talk about the 30-second elevator pitch. Yeah, well, you got 5 minutes to give a pitch.
So
difficult, by the way.
That is difficult.
Actually, that's how you tell whether a model is strong, whether it can describe something short, briefly. Weaker models need to use more words. Stronger models can actually do it.
Yeah. It's like engineering. It's very easy to make something more complicated. It is very, very hard to make something simple.
I remember, like a long time ago, a friend of mine told me that, how if you want to know an ice cream maker, if you want to actually test if this company or this restaurant that makes ice cream, if they're any good, ask for vanilla.
Yes,
because there's no room to hide.
That's right. And that's why, my dad was from Shanghai, and so that's why we liked doing Shanghainese cookie, because if it was bad, you just put more sauce on top of it.
Yeah. You know what is the equivalent of like this kind of test for Cantonese food?
乾炒牛河
Or bak zhou, like white
Yes.
congee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no room to hide for congee.
你用 what fish broth?
No, dry fish.
But then you also have to, for Hong Kong, you use 2 kinds of rice. Most people haven't figured that out.
Yeah, it's
a multi-stage rice.
You need to have mixed of rice because you want certain rice for its stickiness, but you want the other type of rice for the like
bulk.
And then you need a little bit of fish.
And Ricky's going to find the restaurant for us.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
why my father's congee sucked, because he was Shanghainese congee. It was like one rice. We go like, how come the congee in the Hong Kong or the Cantonese restaurants in Chinatown, how come they're so much better? I can't figure this out.
Wait, so this goes back to Shanghainese dad.
Well, Ningbo, actually.
Ningbo, you were growing up in New York.
Yes.
And Fujian mother.
Hokkien
mother.
And this is in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
And then New York Chinatown was different back then.
Yes. Because those people didn't speak, most of them didn't speak Cantonese, they spoke Toisan. Yes.
And now it's more Mandarin,
Now it's Fuzhou.
No, but you have two Chinatowns. You have the traditional one in Manhattan, and you have the de facto Chinatown in Flushing.
Yeah. The Flushing, there used to be a lot of Taiwanese people.
Yes, they were.
And then I think
Koreans came in.
Now it's more Korean.
And then
Brooklyn is more OG.
That's right. Yeah.
The one in Manhattan, like East Broadway, it used to be like a lot of Taisan, and then the Fuzhou people slowly taking over from East Broadway, or closer, and then to the Little Italy.
Well, the Toisan people pushed out the Jews too, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. When you were at Bronx Science, when I was at Bronx Science, it was half Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the Asians pushed the Jews out.
In New York, like you like. Even when I was studying in New York in the 90s, you still use quite a bit of Yiddish, It just worked.
You mean like what? Hey, listen, I had to learn how to pronounce Hanukkah properly. Okay,
well, I don't care.
And schlepping around.
As long as I get the Hanukkah holiday, I'm okay.
So to me, the essence of New York was that very Jewish, down to earth, rough, but that was to me was the essence of maybe when New York was the best. I don't know.
Well, actually, okay, the thing for Bronx Science for me was that was actually the first time I got to see more Chinese students, because when I was in my junior school, high school,
Where were you?
In Queens, I mean, they were all like, they were all basically white or black kids, very few, and
That's right.
and they were.
So you were born in New York?
No, I lived in New York, since I was like small.
Same experience. I had one Asian in my elementary school.
Yeah.
Mamie Chung. I was in love with her because
She was the only.
Asian. And then Bronx Science, I said, oh, Japanese, Koreans, but now it's completely different.
Yeah. My elementary school, there was another Chinese kid named Richard May, and so it'd be you and me.
Oh my
That's
God.
hilarious.
So that was.
So where do we go now? AI, like.
We're finally getting it.
No. I mean,
go ahead.
No.
Sorry,
I'm saying like you did all this, and then
the AI.
you came a long way, right? You from the day that you can't even send an email
Yeah.
to take 3 hours to figure out how to send an email.
It was user friendly. It's like if you have an afternoon to kill, yes, send one email on this system.
When I started After Effects, it was I think After Effects 3. You do a thing and then you press render and then you go watch a film.
Yeah.
So yes, it was user friendly.
Yeah.
There was a lot of film watching.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of rendering need to be done.
Yeah. But that was because the hardware was slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now.
So now I do this writing. I've got another project I got into, but that was more because of my computer forensics background, and then.
But you have a very different perspective looking at this thing, because some people. They probably only just discovered AI last week, and then they didn't see all the stuff, and then you probably have I want to see your perspective. Like, what do you think about OpenAI? What do you think about OpenCrawl? What do you think about?
I have a lot of very controversial perspectives on it, which I will not share here because they're too controversial. But I will say this. Since we talked about Jeremy and I talk a lot because he's a lawyer and doing AI.
Yeah, Jeremy will be.
We
will get Japanese.
Yeah, and we actually talk about how you could replace lawyers with AI, and you can't quite do it, but you can do quite a lot of. You can't replace them completely, but you can do quite a lot of.
Okay. Yeah.
You can't replace the lawyer 100%, but you could replace quite a bit of the
bad lawyers.
The bad lawyers. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for that. The thing about AI, where I see, because I have the background at FedEx and IBM, I got to see how you build a full-on enterprise software with the architecture, with the people, with the support and the continuing development. Where I see there's going to be a problem is that you've got all these people who have gotten into AI, they start playing with vibe coding and everything. When they start to build out their systems, things are going to screw up. Okay, and Jeremy and I talk about this a lot, but we actually think in a couple of years, the next. Where's Augustine? He needs to be here.
He's. We can wait because we can cut this out. I think maybe you need to go and open the door because William and Aug is outside. They can't get in.
Okay.
So
you want to take a break?
No, we'll just we'll just keep the camera rolling and then we'll keep the camera rolling, but we won't speak. Oh, they're finally okay. Yeah.
Hey.
So.
Oh,
hi.
Will.
Aug. Yes. Ronald wants you to hear this, so we actually pause recording so
God.
that.
So
Okay, well let's.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, no.
You missed all my 4-letter words. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you can sit over there.
Yeah, you can sit here.
Sit over there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
So what did you
So-
want to
so-
say
so we were
in the present of org?
Jeremy and I have been chatting about this.
All right.
We think that the next cottage industry will be these people who go in and help companies and people who have vibe coded all these AI agents and are now finding that as they have quote unquote, as they continue to improve these AI agents, things are starting to fuck up big time. That's going to be a major. Now, the problem in the legal sector is that actually we could see this is going to happen big time with some of these guys, but the lawyers, being what they are either too proud to admit it, or they will not admit it because if they said that to their client, the client would say, "What the fuck am I paying you so much fucking money for? And you screwed up my legal process. You screwed up my legal so the lawyers will not say anything, but we think this is going to happen.
Well, to that end, I've started an open source project called Agent Risk Assessment -evals, ARA-eVals. So we're looking.
We're gonna put that on. I'm gonna put that on the description so people.
Yeah, we'll add a description, and we're looking for contributions from the community on like scenarios where an agent messed up, or where you would think an agent would mess up. And
Okay.
I mean, is it? I think it's safe for like someone like a hobbyist to vibe code an agent to control their like light switch in the living room
That's
because
fine.
no one's gonna die from
Fine, that's fine. The problem is, you see, like, if they start to think they can actually produce an enterprise level system.
If someone vibe code like auto drive for ambulance, that is not going to be.
No. Let me tell you what I think. It's like where I hear like say somebody, I have vibe coded an equivalent of this, let's say legal AI software. I go, and I did it over a weekend. I'm like, bullshit. I mean, that is utter
And
bullshit.
if by now you don't know what vibe coding is, that means you haven't been watching our other video. I don't care anymore. So please like us, subscribe, and watch all our video because they actually one is linked to the other. So yeah, comment. And if you like Ronald to swear more, comment.
And we can talk about more
Yeah.
New York stories, Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Handball.
First off,
Yes.
you're pronouncing New York wrong. It's
New
New
York.
York.
Okay. No, the way you test whether somebody's from New York or not is you ask them to pronounce Houston, because Houston.
Oh, you said
Oh, wait. You said you're not from New York. You're not from New York. No, you are not from New York.
I live in Manhattan. I live 2 streets away from Houston.
Houston Street,
I live
yeah.
I live on the street called Cornelia Street.
Cornelia, yeah.
So you know where I am.
Yeah.
Now I got it.
No.
Now I understand. I
Yes.
didn't really hang out there, but I was going to Forbidden Planet all the time.
It's okay. I learned this. I think it was in junior high school, and so yeah, they just said, yeah, it's got to be Houston Street. You don't say New York. Okay, fine. Houston Street. I actually didn't know it was pronounced Houston until the teacher just slapped me around and said, "Nah, it's Houston."
So yeah, well, I guess.
Do we continue or do we stop here?
Well, we have like this hours up. We have
Okay.
to.
went for an hour.
We have you for an hour.
Oh my God!
Well-
you suffered for 1 hour. Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Well, 57 minutes.
Please don't charge me with a war crime, please.
We'd love to have you. Like, I think it has been like a lot of chunks because we barely scratches
We didn't touch Foxconn really at all.
Well,
Oh,
first
yeah.
off, I can't talk about Foxconn because that was actually after I left FedEx. Okay,
Okay.
so they actually
But that was a setup for Foxconn.
Yeah,
That
no.
was
So
just
so the whole thing actually evolved from that initial system.
Did you sign NDAs and stuff? Like,
No, of course not.
Okay.
I can't even spell NDA.
Well, at Apple, I signed so much NDAs. Probably
No.
taller than me.
Yeah, I know. You're probably like, you can. Can I say this? Can I say this? If I go, if it comes out the wrong part, if I say this the wrong way, is that But no,
Yeah.
I that system improved a lot, but over time. But my point was earlier. I don't think that people, when they vibe coded, they don't realize that when they actually have to build something a little bit more substantial, that is a completely different skill set. And I think they haven't figured that out. And I think that you're going to have all these people who have built this stuff, and then it is going to fuck up.
That would be more job opportunities.
There will be plenty of opportunity. You see, people said AI is going to get rid of jobs. No, no.
The future is bright.
Maybe we should just call these people fixers. And these people get covered with these suits, and
It would be Mr. Wolf.
No, and then they get these. We teach them how to speak with a New Jersey accent. I'm a fixer.
You remember Pulp Fiction, Mr. Wolf, the fixers?
Oh yes, of course.
It should be like.
But then they're going to have to memorize that whole passage from Ezekiel.
Well, next time.
Yeah, next time. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ronald.
Thank
you. This is very enjoyable.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Please come back again.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Aki Lab.
Thank you to Aki Lab, and please subscribe and like us and comment.
Thank you.
Bye.